Hello, my name is Zachary Cush, and I just watched Dune 2021. Do I think it was good? Well, strap yourself in for however long this video ends up being, and I'll explain it to you. If you have a kettle boiling on the stove, or are currently fending off a burglar invasion, don't worry. I'll be brief. Or well, as brief as I can manage. So don't think of nor expect this video to be some kind of in-depth critique. It's more of a recommendation letter. Or an unrecommendation letter, depending on the fiction in question. Which is Dune? Well, let's find out. Let's ask, then answer the question, Dune 2021. Is it good? Before deciding whether or not I plan to see an upcoming film, I always check three things. Who's the director? Who's the cinematographer? And who's the screenwriter? Why those three things? Well, those are the people who are the most responsible for making something good. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that all of the great set design, costume design, and makeup artistry counts for naught if there isn't a good DP on set to make the most of them. The finest actors in the world cannot make a bad script good, though they can make a good script great. And all of these talented people and their wonderful craftsmanship would be wasted without a strong director at the helm guiding the project. I have been a fan of director Denis Villeneuve for some time, and most of my initial interest in the project came from his involvement. I watched Enemies on the recommendation of the YMS YouTube channel, and I liked it a lot. I watched Arrival in the theater with my best friend in the whole world, Cotton Hensley, and we both nearly melted into puddles on the floor with how much we loved it. I saw Blade Runner 2049 less as a fan of the original and more as just a fan of Villeneuve. I liked that film a lot and thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I might love it, though I'd have to watch it maybe 4 more times before I could decide for sure. If you held a gun to my head and asked me what Villeneuve's main strength as a filmmaker is, I would start by saying, why are you holding a gun to my head? I'm not keeping a state secret or something. I'm happy to just tell you. I'll take any opportunity to just talk about stuff I like. Then I would say that Villeneuve's main stylistic virtue is patience. He knows what ideas he likes and is not afraid that you're going to check out before he's finished explaining just how great they are to you. This patience manifests itself as extreme confidence. When you go into the theater, you settle into your seat, begin to watch the film, and think to yourself,
"Where are you going with this, bud?"
And you hear Villeneuve gently whisper in your ear,
"Trust me, it's going someplace cool."
And you do trust him. Throughout his multifaceted career, this man has always pointed me towards a good time. And I, so far in my life, have no reason to doubt him. Also central to the project is cinematographer Greig Fraser. I haven't seen all of Fraser's films because, honestly, who has the time for that when you have a full-time job and you're trying to sell a dense, multifaceted work of fiction to an industry of people born to feel that they're not the right agent for the project? And you've been writing 2 more books, one the sequel to that piece of fiction you worked really hard to make that no one will buy, and another one, a mid-grade novel that you've been describing to anybody who will listen as, quote, a comedic, John Green-esque teen coming-of-age drama that gets interrupted by a Lovecraftian apocalypse, end quote. And, to top it all off, you're trying to launch a successful YouTube channel. But, despite all of that, I have had the time to see Zero Dark 30, Rogue One, and Vice. So here's my brief opinion on all 3. Zero Dark 30 is great, and one of its main assets was the cinematographic contrast between scenes of war and scenes of rest. Rogue One is a movie that I hate, but even I have to admit that it's shot pretty competently. Vice is a deeply flawed film, but one of its saving graces is the creative and interesting ways it was shot. So, Greig Fraser gets a big fat checkmark from me. He was also the cinematographer for The Mandalorian's first season, which my best friend in the whole world, Cotton Hensley, says is, quote, pretty good. And if Cotton Hensley says something is pretty good, then buddy, it's pretty good. I've known and loved the man for a decade now. His pretty goods are not awarded lightly. Next up are the 3 credited screenwriters. One of them is Denis Villeneuve, who we've already talked about. Next up is John Spates, who I've never heard of. But his list of credits include Prometheus, a movie I like despite its ridiculous shortcomings, Passengers, a boring movie that sucks, The Mummy, 2017, a disaster so prodigious it killed its entire cinematic universe in its crib. And now, Dune, 2021. I'm not saying that these disasters are this man's fault, though he is responsibility adjacent for films I don't like. However, the third screenwriter is the Oscar-winning Eric Roth, who wrote the Oscar-winning screenplay for Forrest Gump, the Oscar-nominated screenplay for Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and 5 additional Oscar-nominated Best Adapted Screenplays. So either they hired Roth to make Spate's script better, or they hired Spates to make Roth's script worse. In any event, with all 3 of my checkboxes checked, I officially brainlogged
Dune 2021
as a movie I want to see when it comes out. Now it is out, and I have seen it. So, is it good? Yes, it is good. Dune 2021 is good because its makers make good stuff. And if all you're looking for is a recommendation, then there it is. Yes, I recommend Dune 2021, and I think you should watch it. See it now in theaters or streaming on HBO Max. Now that we've discovered whether or not I think Dune 2021 is good, let's talk about why I think it's good. Here is my spoiler warning for
Dune 2021.
If you like going into films knowing nothing about them, then I suggest you click off this video right now. Go watch the movie, then come back. I'll be waiting for you when you return. I don't have anything else to do. And I'm lonely. I saw an advertisement for Dune 2021 which posited that the film would, quote, be the next Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, end quote. This spawned an endless series of cheap jokes between myself and my dear friend Brandon. In our brains, and in my brain especially, Star Wars and The Lord of the Rings offer wildly different experiences. Comparing Dune 2021 to such fiction is an act of wildly transparent, gimmick-esque marketing techniques. However, buried within this procedural practice of performative comparisons lies the nugget of a fascinating thought exercise. What film would I compare to Dune 2021 if I was in charge of a movie trailer? And if I had made the horrid life choices which led one into the field of marketing? Well, I would say it's more of a Blade Runner than a Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, both for its director's erstwhile involvement with that particular world of fiction, but also in that both films share the same main strength: design. Dune 2021 earned my $14.18 worth of a movie ticket with just its visuals alone. Dune 2021 represents a mosaic of visual artists exemplifying mastery over their craft. Just look at these trailers. Villeneuve's virtuous patience combines beautifully with Fraser's eye for detail to make Dune 2021 a painting that you get to hang out inside of. From set design to costume design to props to makeup to lighting to sound design, thousands and thousands of hours of work from hundreds of craftspersons culminate immaculately into the delicious visual splendor that awaits prospective viewers of Dune 2021. Even now, several hours removed from the experience, so many shots, so many visuals, so many effects, so many models and matte paintings, this film leaked from the movie screen and tattooed itself on my brain. Every other movie better give up even thinking about the Academy Award for Best Cinematography right now. And heck, while we're giving up on stuff, give up on that best costume design, best film editing, best visual effects, best sound, and best makeup and hairstyling. And you know what? If my best friend in the whole world, Cotton Hensley, saw this movie, he would call me on the phone and say that it is, quote,
pretty good.
Masterfully knowing when to linger and when to ramp up the tension, Dune 2021 exemplifies the craft of filmmaking so prodigiously that people will throw their drugs into the garbage. The way that Dune 2021 looks is all the drugs you'll ever need, baby. The film is simply a display of mastery. When it takes its time, allowing you to breathe in its atmosphere, you will be breathless. And when it ramps up into meticulously designed, choreographed shot and edited action, you will fall off the edge of your seat. Dune 2021 is the new Blade Runner, a milestone of science fiction filmmaking, a masterclass in and of itself on set design, a museum of stark, professional quality imagination, and filled to the brim with characters that you don't really care about. I purchased Dune the novel from a 3-story bookstore in Boulder, Colorado, in early July of 2021. This was both because I had already decided that I was going to see Dune 2021 opening weekend, and as a prospective fantasy author myself, it seemed prudent to at least have a functional knowledge of a pivotal, milestone-marking sci-fi fantasy story. I began reading Dune the novel that day at a leisurely pace, drinking up its textured language and generous pacing. I tell you this because I must admit that my interest in Dune the novel is almost purely out of a self-appointed sense of professionalism, and also that I have developed certain tastes so distinct that I can use them to craft my own future best-selling novel series. My feelings towards this novel proved prophetic for my feelings towards the film Dune 2021. I love the novel's slow, confident texture. I love its meticulous approach towards layered, in-depth world-building. I am fascinated by its stark, matter-of-fact approach to in-universe politicking. I admire its imagination and its attention to immersion-enriching detail. I do not really care about any of its characters. That's not to say that the characters in Dune are badly written. It's more nuanced than that. It's more like Dune's characters were produced from a different kind of writing philosophy. There is no perfect paradigm in storycraft. For every model, something is gained and something is lost. The novel Dune exists as a masterclass unto itself on how to craft fascinating world building. And it uses its characters as a means to facilitate this world building rather than having the characters be an end unto themselves. What do I mean by this? Well, the characters exist to serve the world of the story, rather than the other way around. Dune isn't about anybody in particular, it's about a place. As such, it is not a character-driven story. Its characters are reactive rather than proactive. Its characters serve a function rather than having arcs, goals, or internal conflicts. Again, this does not translate to bad. Rather, it tastes to me like a wasted opportunity. In fact, wasted is pretty much how I describe my feelings towards all the characters in this fiction. Spoiler alert, I'm gonna spoil what happens in Dune now, specifically what happens to certain characters. Click to this part in the video if you don't want this part spoiled for you. When thinking of Dune and its characters, I think about Dr. Yue, a man tortuously incentivized to betray his benefactor for the benefit of the faction he despises. Yet, in his treachery, he aptly provides Duke Leto with the means of revenge. It makes me wonder where they'll go with him next, this man of torn loyalties. Will he seek redemption by serving his old master's son? Will he play the double agent? Or will he... Oh, he's just dead. I guess he doesn't really get to do anything anymore. Now I think about Duncan Idaho, the plucky, well-to-do soldier under the employ of the Duke. Now that House Atreides has fallen so low, the once carefree, jovial man will have to step up and become the... Oh, he's just dead. I guess he doesn't get to rise to any occasion then. I think next of Dr. Liette Kynes, this interesting planetary ecologist with her own goals that exists outside of that of the Imperium or the Bene Gesserit. Pulled by puppet strings in several directions, will this intelligent character be able to dance the political tightrope long enough to see that her goals are... Oh, she's just dead. Oh, okay, I guess we'll all just move on then. I saw an advertisement for Dune 2021, which posited that the film would be, quote, the next Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, end quote. This spawned an endless series of cheap jokes between myself and my dear friend Brandon. In our brains, and in my brain especially, Star Wars and The Lord of the Rings offer wildly different experiences. Though, come to think of it, both The Lord of the Rings and the original Star Wars film trilogy are what I would call character-driven. The characters make choices, and these choices create the rest of the story. Star Wars and The Lord of the Rings are ultimately about people and what they make of themselves. Dune 2021 is about a place. A lovingly crafted, meticulously rendered place, mind you. But I just find myself wishing it was a bit more about people, too. And then it could give all of these talented actors a little bit more to work with. It is difficult to judge a work's thematic statements on first viewing. So consider this my thematic first impressions more than anything else. I'm sure in a year or two after I've watched this movie a dozen times, I'll come to a more concrete opinion. But for now, here's what I got. It is clear to me that the thematic weight of Dune 2021 is about politics. All of its story elements, therefore, invite us to think about them in a political context. My mind immediately turns to a throwaway line by one of the Bene Gesserit, when they said that they planted superstitions within the culture of the Fremen of Arrakis, to make its people more conducive to serving a political function. Then I think of Paul Atreides having prophetic visions which compel him to wage war against the Imperium. Therein lies a fascinating idea that religion and prophecy are at their heart political, that people in power are not as powerful as we imagine, that they are always in competition with one another. And through this lens, everyone becomes a pawn, a piece in a game, a means to an end. When approaching the end of part 1 of the novel, and subsequently the back half of this film, I found myself asking the question, where are you going with this, bud? I'm happy to say that I'm absolutely interested in finding out just where this story is going, because I want to hear its answers to its own thematic questions. As my dear friend Brandon and I left the theater and began a cursory discussion of the film, I thought of the statement made by the character Dr. Kynes, that the Imperium has always had it within their wheelhouse to make Arrakis a paradise, and that the powers that be want to keep it a desert, and thereby keep their monopoly over the valuable interstellar resource known as spice. When I heard this line, I immediately thought,
Oh, that's the whole point.
when recalling this particular line in the midst of my discussions with my dear friend Brandon, I said, quote, "The powerful would rather be kings of the desert than equals in paradise." And you know what? I think that's a pretty good line. Hey Warner Brothers, here's my business email. I'm happy to lend my writing expertise to your next Dune film if you'll send me some money. I can't claim to have written as many Oscar-nominated screenplays as Eric Roth, but I've also never produced anything as middlingly terrible as a John Spates film. Anyway, that's all I got. Stay safe, stay true, and I'll see you in the future. Thank you for watching. If you like this content and want to see more stuff like it, consider supporting me on Patreon. Anyways, I got a bunch more stuff coming, so I guess I better get back to work. Peace. Away! I had a burp there. It's because I've been drinking so much goddamn root beer.